So what do we mean by the alchemy of happiness? Well, as you probably know, alchemy is a kind of a process through which an extraordinary outcome is accomplished. Um, since the Middle Ages, um, seekers have been searching for the philosopher's stone, this particular element through which they would be able to then transform lead or other dross metal into gold. I think among the Sufis, the notion has been that what this is really talking about is the capacity to transmute everyday ordinary experience into the illumination of happiness. So why do we use the term alchemy of happiness? Well, there are two ways in which we're looking at this. The first comes from the realization, the understanding that American Constitution notwithstanding, we cannot pursue happiness. The pursuit of happiness in and of itself is a kind of a failed effort. Happiness is not an object that can be gotten. It's certainly not something that can be purchased or something that we can become worthy of through some credentialing process, even a spiritual credentialing process. Happiness is not something that we can go and get. And we know this because we've all had multiple experiences of pursuing something, a goal, an object, an outcome, an achievement, with sincere belief that once we had accomplished that, we would find, if not total permanent happiness, at least an increase in our daily happiness. And you know, we do for a minute. You know, I mean, it's kind of sad and frustrating that we work so hard in the quote-unquote pursuit of happiness, only to find that the happiness that we gain is invariably transient. We're happy for a little while, and then another sense of hunger, of emptiness. There's something missing here. If only I could, and then I will. You know, and this is basically the mechanism through which we live for many of us. By talking about the alchemy of happiness, this is a kind of a general acknowledgement that in order for happiness to be the space that I inhabit, the quality of being that I share with others in my life, the sort of undercurrent of my existence, in order for happiness to be that, something extraordinary has to happen. Extraordinary in the sense that it's going to come from outside of my proscribed sphere of goal-directed activity, from my prescribed sphere of rational cause and effect pursuits. It's something kind of magical has to happen for this transformation to take hold and to become a substantial part of how I live and what I live and who I am. So we're using the term alchemy in that sense, the recognition that there's something about this that is outside of our control. We're not going to be able to manage ourselves into happiness. The other way in which we use the term alchemy in relation to happiness is this notion, just a hypothesis, but it's very, I believe, it's very worthwhile to explore this hypothesis, that the happier we become in this sense of substantial, enduring, non-goal related happiness. You know, this happiness is when you answer the question, why am I happy? There's no answer. You shrug your shoulders. I'm not happy because of something. There's a happiness that exists in its own right. That the more and more that becomes a substantial energy, quality in our lives, the more that kind of extraordinary, unusual, unexpected, I might even say miraculous things happen you know, offerings, blessings, occasions, insights, experiences, opportunities, possibilities open up in our lives that we hadn't quite expected and maybe even didn't dream of. But when they come, they are so welcome. And welcome because we recognize that in these experiences, something comes to us that enables us to deepen and expand our capacity for health, well-being, and sharing in a meaningful way. Love, compassion, kindness, goodness with all life around us. That somehow happiness itself generates opportunities for this to deepen and expand and become a more dynamic and living part, not just of how we live internally, but more significantly, how we live in relationship to our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, our communities, the planet, the divine, however we might formulate that, that our capacity for fulsome, non-ego-centered relationship sort of miraculously expands the happier we become. Now, if this sounds extraordinary, I would agree. It's extraordinary, and that's precisely why we call this the alchemy of happiness.